one single-family home. It doesn't mean that you can't get the same benefit, and that's something that the board might want to find answers to, because the more pieces that you can fit into the puzzle, the more the board has information that they want to use to formulate a decision. Okay? Always remember, hanging out there on a lot of these applications are these Article 78s, And so when an Article 78 goes up before the court, the court is going to always give a lot of deference to the local municipality to enforce their zoning, how they want to do it, okay? As long as ultimately the municipality hangs their hat on the factors that they weigh. So you pretty much, turn around and can say, based on our findings, we find that, this factor is not met. Well, as long as you have 3-4 things underneath it justifying it, a court's not going to reverse that. It's not going to say we don't like the Village of Washingtonville believing they want to do X. It's not going to say that. Where municipalities get in trouble is basically where they just say, we don't like the project, okay? So, always remember that, because it's a hard job for a board to do, Like, you come before with a project and you take a look and you're living someplace and they're going to put a nuclear waste site next to you, and you're like, there's no way that's going next to me, right? Well, in order to have it defeated, you got to be able to point out and say, there's environmental issues, it doesn't meet code, etc. So, I only stress that because I'm not to be the one who writes the decision, and when I write a decision, I want the board to be able to say, these are the reasons why, we either are for it or we're against it, okay? I guess Maureen is not joining us.
She said she keeps trying, but
maybe she was the host.
she did say that, she didn't say why, but we know why. She was against the multifamily house. And she was very bland about it. I don't know, we'll have to come up with the reasons or whatever.
Well, listen.
Well, I don't have a good reason. I'm just against it.
Okay, but listen, that's the reason why I say what I say, is that,
Right.
you gotta look at the factors. You gotta basically, for example, if I say to you one of the factors is it substantial, right? Well, look at the numbers that are being asked for on the variance, right? It's on the application. If it says, we want 38 feet side setback, side yard, and 100 is the code, is that considered substantial? Well, you would think 90 to 100 isn't, and you would think 30 to 100 is. So, that's like a math question. You take a look at the variances being asked for, and ultimately you tell if the numbers are bigger or smaller than what you think is substantial. That's a question for the board. Is it self-created? Do you believe that it's something that was somebody's own fault? Do you think that there's evidence to suggest that somebody walked into this and it was their own negligence that gets them there? Those are things that, there's stuff out there that you can look at one way, you can look at a different way. When you start getting into environmental factors or physical condition of the, environment, those are things that ultimately have a little bit more play to them, because properties are different and they're in different places. Are there streams there, or there, someone's going to cut down 10 acres of woods? Those are different, but there's when you say, like, well, I don't like it, well, there's what you got to do is basically look at all the information you have and look at the things to consider, and there's stuff you could argue either way.
He's looking for a minimum lot area of less than 50% of what it should be.
Then the board determines, do they think that's substantial or not,
I'm not into this.
Listen, one thing I'm going to point out to the board just to consider is this. Ultimately, one of the things municipalities like to do is keep consistency in decisions, right? They want to have consistency with one decision compared to the other. There's probably within the Village of Washingtonville, there's decisions that are similar to this, okay? Ultimately, you can FOIL or ask for, those decisions, and they're similar, okay? And look at them, because ultimately, they might be similar against or for, and it might, help guide you for a decision, okay? That's what municipalities want to do, is obviously keep their things moving along the same way, so that there's no ability to say, oh, it's because of this reason or that reason.
Are we just waiting on Maureen? Is that what we were waiting on?
No, I mean, I don't think she's going to be getting in.
Okay.
I don't think she's gonna make it, Penny.
So I don't know if you guys, did you have any other questions, concerns?
So are we voting tonight?
No, we're not going to vote tonight.
Okay.
One is we don't have Maureen. Number two, on the issue of Santer, that doesn't seem like there's a lot of things hanging out there from the board. But I think on the second application, it pays to obviously bring the applicant back and ultimately allow any questions or their comments to us. And, we're going to basically allow them to know that we have this other information that we were provided by the police, that we were, let them make their comment about that, etc. And so the record's clear, and then we'll make a time and the date for us.
And how about the fact that somewhere in all this paperwork, that the tenant's paying like the whole electric and gas bill there? And there's 2 tenants and possibly 3?
Yeah, I think isn't that how they said this thing came to light? Was one of the tenants basically found out she was paying the whole house, right?
Yeah, and then John went over and inspected.
Right.
Yeah, that's shaky right there.
This whole thing is shaky.
What's surprising to me is, we put such an obligation on the applicant to notify everybody out there in the community, about the applications that are pending and whatnot, and you have a public hearing, and ultimately, it's like, you would think that maybe the person next door who's witnessed these police calls would be there, and and what do we have? One person rolled in.
I don't usually go to them either. I get them from all my buildings. People trying to do stuff in the neighborhood, and I don't go.
One other thing that was interesting, I asked John about this earlier, was that the house right next door, is single family. It's zoned for single family. I don't think that we need to go disrupting what we're trying to achieve in the village as far as aesthetic and quality of life. If the police are being called over there constantly, I think that that's something that is 100% easily put your foot down. We're not going in that direction for the village of Washingtonville.
And plus the guy put up an illegal wall to separate the two, and supposedly he's putting up another one to make it a third family.
The loft is it's not up to code. That bothers me. I don't think that we should be giving any variances for illegal situations or even entertaining them. It's not brought up to code. We shouldn't be entertaining it.
I don't want to even hear the hardship end of it, because he knew what he was getting into when he got into it.
Exactly.
He was told before he bought it what it was all about.
Well, remember what I told you. Some of these questions that you have, for example, if you want to ask, how much did you purchase it for? Right? If somebody purchased it for $100,000, and you take a look and say it's an area that has homes for $250,000, right? You got a discount because of you buying it kind of as is. Like when you have a foreclosure, right? That door is locked. You can't go in, right? So ultimately, the bank doesn't allow you to do any of that, right? And so, what is, when you say hardship, well, isn't it relevant if somebody paid $400,000 for something or $100,000? You want to know that. That's all part of the risks buyers take or don't take. Those things are important. Let me ask you this question, unless I'm imagining things. Remember when I was peppering with questions about the title company, and he said, "I'll get you correspondence from the title company to the village."
Never saw
right?
it.
Didn't I raise that? He said, "I'm going to get." We sent for smoke alarm affidavits, and they wrote us back. And didn't I ask him for that? He said, well, "I'm going to get all that."
We
Right.
understand.
But he hasn't gotten anything.
The email correspondence, we haven't seen anything.
Right.
I thought that that's what we were going to be discussing tonight.
Well, that's why when I said to you before, my mind was thinking that we had a reason to look at new info, and I knew we had Caesars, and that's why I said, were we supposed to get something extra? Because I knew that he was yesing me to death about all the stuff he was going to give us.
Yeah, I don't think that exists.
All right, well, you can you can use your imagination. But again, that's stuff that, don't let somebody get away with that. Somebody told you, hey, we're going to get proof that the village told us it's a
Right.
two-family.
Right.
That's very important. I mean, ultimately, they're throwing the fault on the village. So, don't let them get away with
Well,
it.
that's my concern is so we don't get in trouble. Where did it ever get on the tax roll? And I'm gonna try tomorrow to go back, because the one I pulled up definitely says it's two-family, but it was like last year's. I wanna know when it actually, it went back to 2002, so I wanna see when, if that's the year it actually got changed, and how it slipped through all the cracks.
Yeah, that's.
You mean
How
on the
did that
tax
ever
card?
get on
You
the
mean
tax roll as
card?
two-family?
Are you referring to the tax card in the village?
You can pull up, I don't know if everybody can, but I got ways to pull up the tax thing.
Right, so what I'm saying is, are you referring to the tax card the village keeps or the county's tax card?
County.
So, because the question becomes this, so if I buy a piece of property tomorrow, and on the RP 5217, it asks me for the tax code in the middle of the section, if I put 210, the county of Orange takes it as a single-family residential, right? I tell the county how to tax it because of how I fill out the transfer doc. So that's not proof of really any, I mean, if I list apartment house, that doesn't mean that I'm legally zoned to have an apartment, right? So what's important is if the village's tax card that has the definition of its zoning, not to say in this case that it doesn't still have the issue of the agreement with the former owner that's in the file that says it runs out when they die, right? But
Or
at
sell
least
it.
that would tell us that nobody was playing funky business. But when this guy bought it from the bank or the purchaser, when he bought it, those transfer docs that were filed in the county of Orange, you could put whatever tax code you want.
Yeah, but what I'm saying is, if we go back a little further, and, before he bought it, I think he bought it, 2019?
Yeah.
As a person, and then sold it
Right.
to himself as the business in 2020. So we look at like 2017, if that ends up being a two-family at that point, that far back, then I'm concerned to how it got on there, how it happened, and nobody caught
but
that.
But that would have been legit because the village of Washingtonville would have wanted more taxes from a two-family, right, than a single-family residential, right?
Okay.
So if they have an agreement with the former owner that says you're allowed to have a two-family, we're going to tax it as a two-family. Obviously, it's a benefit to the village. So it's going to show a two-family up to, through, and including. The issue really becomes when that person died or was divested of title in the foreclosure, that two-family ended. Okay? And if I ran title, I would have seen that letter that said it ends with the purchaser and been like, whoa, we have a problem. But obviously that's what creates the gap. So I don't think there's any dispute the village was taxing it as a two-family because they came to an agreement with the former owner that said, we're going to start taxing you this way.
Right, but what he was saying was, he looked, which I think he's lying, but he looked everything up with everything he found, and even the old owner or whatever, everybody said it was a two-family. So he's playing innocent when he
Yeah, and I don't think there's any dispute that the former owner basically was taxed and had an agreement with the village that we would leave it alone as a two-family and obviously take it away once it was sold. I don't think there's any dispute that was the case.
So on that right there, can we just say, because for that letter that he can't have it as a two-family, just from that?
Well, you would use that as a justification for when you talk about self-created. Do you say self-created hardship was because somebody closed a property without due diligence? I mean, you could say that. If you said that it was self-done, you could say that. If you said that it wasn't substantial hardship because there was ability to know that that was going to happen. I mean, we don't know any of those answers. You know, we don't know what somebody knew. We have no idea. You know, we don't know if somebody said, "Hey, here's this letter. Don't worry about it. Maybe the village will be sleeping at the wheel. Let's just pick it up and then we'll deal with it later." We don't know that.
Right.
You know, we have no idea.
But supposedly, he was told by some girl, Laura, what was her name? The assistant building inspector, I forget her
Right.
name.
I think it was a secretary, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was the secretary.
Well, she's an assistant, she's actually assistant building inspector also.
Okay.
I have it here somewhere, but supposedly she went through a whole, if you look, anybody get the email from Bluestein?
Yes.
Okay, if you look at that and you read the whole thing, it shows Susan Solo, that was her name.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and she told him everything that was going on, but he did nothing about it. He just went ahead and purchased it.
Clerk, yeah, gotcha, Susan.
She's a clerk in the building department and assistant to the building inspector.
So I think in order to rebut those issues, you would want to put your hands on email correspondence, the title company inquiring. You know, that's very important. At least
Right.
then, if you don't get that, then obviously, you say that, you know, the issue that was raised basically was not rebutted by those issues. Now, I'm an independent. I write the decision. So at the end of the day, my thing is if it's not provided to you, and the board has an inclination to not want to go with it, don't let it be provided to you. Meaning, basically, don't worry about it. Not your job to get it, right? If the board was saying, "Hey, we want to be able to look at this in a way that, you know, is positive, etc., then you'd want to basically have proof of that to hang your hat on. So, you know, it's the applicant's job to give it to you. You don't get it, it's not your job to hunt it down.
You know, but he's going to be a jerk off and say, you know, how does he produce evidence
Strike
that
the
he
word
didn't
jerk
know
off.
about?
We're going to
Sorry?
strike the word jerk off.
Strike the word.
No, sorry. I got we're being recorded.
The applicant.
The applicant. Right, but his lawyer's as shrewd as he is. You know, there's a saying.
Well, you know, listen, I say to everybody when I stand there in court, it's free to twist facts or opinions however you want, right? So,
Right. So
that's their job. Ultimately, at the end of the day, it's your job as a board to sift through the stuff you got and obviously draw credibility determinations and facts and things of that nature. So, you know. So what I'll do is I'll shore up those 2 February dates. We don't have Maureen tonight, so obviously we can put a vote out for both of them together. Okay.
Yeah.
well, I can talk to Maureen. I know she's against the multifamily. She didn't say anything about the other one.
Right. So we'll
You want
have
it?
the other. What I suggest we do is I'll tell Caesar Engineering there the board has no more questions about Santa, right? So we don't need him to come in, right? And
Right.
we'll keep the other application on for that February date, and ultimately they'll come back and present whatever additional information they got.
What is the date for the other one?
February
What's that?
3rd, I believe.
February 3rd, yeah. Okay.
I went on the calendar.
Yeah, she didn't say anything bad about Santa, which I don't think any of us are. And she's saying that she checked out, and the multifamily was formerly a daycare, and never intended for a 2-family. Anybody know that?
I never heard anything about that.
This is Maureen telling me this. She did research and said it was a 2-family dwelling on 1 Nicole Street and formerly a daycare. Oh, no, I'm against a two-family. It was formerly a daycare and never intended for a two-family.
Yeah, all I've heard was mother-daughter, that they had the kitchen situation that was open to the rest of the home. No walls were placed whenever he purchased it. And then he had other motives and started placing walls and locks and things.
Right. So now he's got a three-family going there.
I don't know if that's a fact or not, but I do know that there's two, and that seems to be illegal.
I read in some of this paperwork, I mean, I don't know if I can find it real fast, but that he built a third family, a third apartment
Yeah.
by putting
That was so
something
long.
in a loft or something.
Yeah.
I mean, God forbid, first of all, I mean, I'm sure down here. I'm sorry?
The fire hazard at that point.
I was just gonna say that. It's gotta be, per square foot, it's gotta be a certain amount of people that are allowed to live in a building. I have that one of my buildings up in Middletown. The apartments, they're small apartments, only 2 people per apartment. So the whole building can only have 8 people. So I'm very careful when I rent those out.
My husband's a firefighter, so that's the first thing my mind.
Yeah.
I don't
So
have
we're-
any other questions.
All right, so we're good for the 3rd, and I'll take care of sending out what I gotta send out, and then we'll see everyone on February 3rd at I think 7, right?
7, yep.
So I think
Okay.
they want 7:30, but I'm gonna tell them 7. All right.
7 February 3rd.
Yep.
Make it on a Saturday.
That's scary.
Everyone
Right?
good?
Yeah.
That's good.
All right. I'll see you all later.
All right, bro.
Bye bye.
Bye.
Hmm.